All right, welcome back here into the Sunday Sports Zone. We've got Frank Frangie hanging out with us now as we kind of go through what has been a busy time for the Jaguars. Frank, there's no rest period here. So the Jaguars wrapped up minicamp, and they immediately went ahead and just dropped the biggest news bomb of the offseason on all of us.
Yeah, and I'm glad that Trevor Lawrence thing happened before the real break happened. So we all have some time off now. About 6 weeks, that's players, that's coaches, that's you and me and everybody. But listen, Jamal, that needed to get done. It's a great deal. It makes sense for everybody. It's really ingenious in that the next 2 years aren't even covered under that. He's already under contract. So the 5-year deal kicks in afterwards. So it's really a 7-year deal. Look, there's 330 million Americans, right? There's about 10 who are capable, maybe 12, of being elite quarterbacks, and you've got one. Don't let him get away. I love what they did, and I love the fact that he's going to be here a long time.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the deal, Frank. So the Jaguars inked this 5-year extension with Trevor Lawrence, $275 million. That is a hefty price tag, and it's one that puts, I guess, Trevor Lawrence in the conversation of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. I think that was the exclamation point that I saw from people freaking out, like, oh, Trevor is one of the highest paid. He's in there with Joe Burrow. But when you really look at this deal, I looked at, after I saw the numbers, I said, oh, this is actually a really good contract. And one of the things that I kind of immediately went to was the cap percentage for these deals. So Trevor's deal, while people are comparing it to Joe Burrow, is actually more comparable to what the Cowboys did with Dak Prescott a few years back. It's a gaudy deal, but the salary cap keeps going up, which that means contracts are going to keep going up. Trent Baalke did his thing with this, Frank. I think this is a bargain and a good contract at the same time. So Trevor Lawrence happy. Jaguars should be very happy too.
And they did it the way you do it in this day and age, Jamal. That's the big thing, is Trevor and Joe Burrow are the highest paid guys today, until Tua gets his new deal in a couple of weeks, and Dak gets his new deal, and Jordan Love gets a deal. The latest quarterback's the most highly paid guy. And what you have to do is you have to be in the slot, and that's what the Jaguars are. Again, this didn't alarm me at all. The dollars, I don't get caught up in the dollars. Did you do enough to keep him here for the long haul? Jamal, this team is in their window. They've got it built. This isn't a rebuilding team. This isn't a team that's going to be good down the road. This isn't a team pointing at 3 years from now. This is the team that now, next year, the next year, this is their window. And this is the 30th year they've had a team. In the previous 29, they haven't been in the window all that often. They've been rebuilding. They've been retooling. We're going to get there. They're in the window now, and that's why you lock up your quarterback.
All right, we've had this conversation a time or two, Frank. You mentioned that 30th year. In the 30 years of this franchise, there's only one other quarterback that you can really put in the conversation of saying, that guy's probably better than Trevor Lawrence right now, or at least on the same level, Mark Brunell. What does Trevor have to do to kind of hang his cap and say, all right, he's the guy now, the feathers in his cap, he's the best quarterback in franchise history? Is it a really good year this year? Is it going to take a couple of years? Does he have to win a Super Bowl in your mind? What is it?
Well, Mark Brunell got the 2 AFC championship games. Start with that. I would start with getting deep in the playoffs. I think that's first and foremost. But here's the deal. He's going to be, in my opinion, he will be the biggest star to ever play here. Mark was very good. But March time, they were good for a while, and then they weren't after that. I think this team is built to go very deep. I really believe that. He will be the biggest star they've ever had. I'm not going to say the best player they've ever had, because I don't know that they'll ever have a better player than Tony Baselli. He's one of the best players I ever saw, and Fred Taylor's right there. Jimmy Smith is right there. We'll see if he's as good a player as those guys, because they are great players. Maybe he will be. But he'll be the biggest star they ever had. He'll be the guy that shows up on SportsCenter more than any other Jaguar. He'll be the guy that has endorsement deals unlike any other Jaguar. He's their star. They're going to build it around him. And Jamal, to that end, he's the right guy. He's humble. He's unassuming. You know Trevor. He's not going to let this get to him. It's not going to affect his ability to lead. He's the right guy at the right time to be the big star that the Jaguars have really needed.
Now, to that end, I think we both agree that this was a deal that had to get done. Jaguars had to keep Trevor here, but the Jaguars do still need Trevor to take his play to the next level. There are a few spots in his game that he definitely could work on, and he knows that, and the coaching staff knows that, and they've worked with him on that. There are things to clean up, but you have to take into account that there are guys like Michael Penix Jr. who are getting drafted in the top 10 who are older than Trevor Lawrence. So there's still plenty of room for Trevor to grow. I don't think we've seen him play his best football in the NFL yet. Frank, do you?
That's the key is, no, we haven't. He's 24 years old. Regardless of how long he's been in the league, he had a funky way to start in the Urban Meyer year, and then he's tried to get better under a really good coach in Doug Peterson, a guy that an NFL coach. Look, I think there's one major thing Trevor has to do, and I've been saying this, Jamal. learn what plays not to try to make. That's the big thing. He holds it a little too long. That causes him to get hit. It leads to fumbles. That's why he led the league in turnovers. He tries to force things that aren't quite there because he's got a big arm and he trusts his ability and he thinks he can get it in there. This league's really good. Slowly but surely, I see that happening, though. He's a smart guy. When Trevor Lawrence learns what plays not to try to make, to get the ball out of his hands quicker, to throw it in the third row and come back to play second down, when that starts happening, and I think it's starting to, I think he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Everything else is there. The hardware, the software, the work ethic, good teammate, and all that ability. It's going to happen. There's no doubt in my mind.
All right, Trevor is a big part of the equation, but there are still a handful of other players on that Jaguars roster who are going to have a thing or two to do with if the Jaguars can turn this thing on and make a run this season. Let's talk about the team as a whole here, Frank. Off-season program officially wrapped up. Next stop for the team is training camp. Jaguars have done a lot of moving around, a lot of pieces. They didn't rebuild it completely, but I guess I like Press Taylor's term. They kind of took it down to the studs and have added some big pieces this offseason. Do you feel better about where the team is right now than maybe you did this time a year ago? And I know you felt pretty good about them a year ago.
Yeah, a year ago this time I felt pretty good. So I don't know that I feel better. I feel similar to the way I did. What we found out is there were holes we didn't realize were there, and then they had some injuries. You hit it, though, Jamal. The storyline of this season is all the newness. They've got a good roster, but it's a brand-new defensive coordinator. It's a brand-new scheme, which means I think Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen, it fits them way better. But there's newness. The receiving core all of a sudden is new. All of a sudden, Calvin Ridley's gone, and Zay Jones is gone, and Gabe Davis is here, and Brian Thomas Jr. is here. That's a lot of newness. There's a brand new center. They've had the same center for the last 2 years. Center is one of the most important positions on offense. There's going to be a new outside corner and a new nickel. There's going to be a brand new starting safety in Antonio Johnson. There's so much newness that we have to see how it plays out. Now, I think it's going to fit. I think it's going to mesh. I like what they've done. I can tell you they like what they've done. But because there's so much change on the surface, we have to see how that change all meshes together.
All right, let's talk about a couple of things specifically. Let's start with maybe young players, Frank. So this team, they want to be a draft and develop team, which good teams in the NFL are. In order to do that, you have to draft right. That means that those players have to develop. That's the second part of it. So let's talk about some of those second-year players. Last year, the Jaguars were kind of a complete roster. A lot of young players didn't get a whole lot of long leash. If you made a mistake, you kind of found your way, and your playing time, it was gone. So they need to find a way to have growth and those guys be able to step up and get better this season so where they can contribute. When you look at maybe last year's draft class, Frank, is there any young player that's going into his second, maybe even third year that you think, okay, that guy's ready to step up for this team and help this year?
There's a bunch of them, Jamal, but I think mostly they're going to be supplementary pieces. Other than Anton Harrison, who's a key piece, I think Tank Bigsby's going to be way better, but he's a supplementary piece. He's going to supplement Travis Etienne. I think Brenton Strange is going to be a way better player. He looks more fluid to me. He looks more like a pass catcher than he did before, but he's going to be a supplementary piece to Evan Ingram. I think Ventrell Miller, and you and I had this talk last year, is a really good player. They really like him. He's got great burst. He's got instincts. He's fast, but he's got to stay healthy. He's got to prove that he can. If he does, he'll be a supplementary piece to the linebackers they've already got, Foye, Littleton, Devin Lloyd, the like. So I do think there's some young players that will help more than they did in the past. I think that's your question, but as supplementary pieces. The new guys, I think, help right away. It's not supplementary pieces. I think Brian Thomas Jr. has got to affect them right now, the way Anton Harrison did a year ago. I think Jarian Jones is going to win a job outside, Jamal. I think, boy, he's getting rave reviews. So I think he's got a chance to help him now. So, yeah, Antonio Johnson's a guy from last year's class that will not be a supplementary piece. He'll be a guy that helps right out of the gate. So I think there's a good mix of guys, frontline guys, and guys who help the cause from a depth standpoint.
All right, I like that you talked about Jarian Jones. So I got one last question for you, Frank, and then I'm going to let you go. As we start to maybe start thinking about training camp and start thinking about the season, is there a training camp battle that you're looking forward to seeing the most? Because there's going to be a couple. That cornerback position with Jarian Jones, because he has been fantastic so far this offseason, is going to be one that I know is worth watching. Maybe that nickel cornerback spot as well. Maybe even left tackle or wide receiver. Is there one spot that you're eager to watch when training camp rolls around because you know that one's going to be heated between a couple of good players?
Yeah, I think the only real position battles going in, now something could change. They could change how they feel about somebody, I suppose. But the only real position battles in terms of who's going to start the game, outside corner for sure, nickel corner for sure, I think those two. I think that Sam linebacker spot. Now that you've got three true linebackers on the field, is it Chad Muma? Does Ventrell Miller push him? Do they play Muma inside and line up Devin Lloyd outside? So there's a new linebacker position. Someone's got to win that job. Someone's got to be the outside corner. It could be Ronald Darby, or it could be Jaguars Jones. That's Seminole versus Seminole, the young one and the veteran one. See who wins that. And then, of course, the nickel. They went and got Darnell Savage to play it. We'll see if he holds up. But I think those are the only, in terms of who starts the game, I think the only real position battles in my mind of note. I know they've said center's a battle, but I think Mitch Morse is going to be their center. So I think the only real position battles of note in terms of guys who are going to start the game, outside corner, nickel, Sam linebacker. Those are the three for me. And I can't wait to watch him. Again, I can't wait to watch this guy, Jaguars Jones. Everybody's talking about him. We saw him at FSU. I can't wait to watch him play here. And I think he gets a shot outside, not just at nickel. I really do.
Jarian is fantastic on the field, and he is fantastic off the field. Frank, I don't know if you saw this. So we caught up with Jarian this week as they were wrapping up minicamp. He said he gave us two really good things that I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to let you go. He told us that he added the extra R in his name. His name is actually only spelled with one R. He said he added the second R because he wanted people to say his name right. And he said they still mess it up, so but he forgives them for it. His second one, and I'm going to ask you, Frank, if you do this because I definitely don't. He says he only wears his socks once. He says he's been doing this since high school. He wears the socks once and he throws them out. And so he goes through packs of socks like nothing. And it's apparently been something that he's been doing through high school. I got socks that are years old. He would be appalled if he looked at my sock drawer.
Well, first of all, I need a brand new sock budget. Okay, right. I don't have the budget to keep changing socks out. So that, but here, let me tell you the best part about that story you just told. I didn't know that story. He's that guy. Yeah. He's got personality. He's got charisma. If he's as good a player as it looks like he is, we'll be telling stories about his high school days and his socks and what he drives, and because he's that guy and he loves talking and he's a cool, charming kid. And I hope he's as good as I think he's going to be because he's going to be a lot of fun to cover.
Yeah, I think he's going to be fantastic. All right, Frank, thanks for hanging out with us. All right, we still got plenty more of the Sunday Sports Zone coming your way. If you want to keep up with the Jaguars, making sure you're checking out that News for Jags podcast. We'll have new episodes coming out all the time. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcast or track it down over on newsforjags.com. Just click on that handy-dandy sports page.